You will be able, there we go. You will be able to review the recording for this session on demand viewing, or for on-demand viewing on our Client Enrichment Series YouTube playlist. In fact, you can find over 50 recordings of previous CES sessions on topics ranging from RWAs to leasing to occupancy planning. We'll put that link in the chat panel for you, and you'll see it again on the last page of the slide deck. Now today, we have several presenters and subject matter experts from the Central Office PBS Office Workplace Strategy team. You can see them on your screen, and I'd like to take a moment to introduce them. Carol Hunt is a workplace program specialist working out of GSA's Northwest Arctic region, Region 10. Mrs. Hunt is currently working with the Center of Workplace Strategy Office, focusing on the commercial co-working service contract and the secure co-working service contract with a focus on law enforcement agencies. Carol joined GSA's Northwest Arctic region in 2007. She served as a realty specialist, PM, and currently a workplace specialist. In this role, she provides comprehensive, focused, and timely workplace planning services. Her client focus, combined with extensive project experience with complex transactions, equip her to strategically engage GSA's clients and keep projects on track. She relishes a role that requires teamwork, fosters connections, and allows her to guide customers to a customized workplace approach that meets both their current and future workplace needs. She is also a certified ProSci. How did you pronounce that, Carol? ProSci, thank you. A change management practitioner, currently working towards a DEI certification from Coronet Global, and holds a BA in business with a minor in marketing from Eastern Washington University. We will also be hearing from Joel Tabacher. Joel is a project manager currently on a detail assignment working on the Workplace 2030 initiative. He's been at GSA for almost 15 years and has a background in data and analytics, process improvement, and program management. He currently resides in suburban Philadelphia. Now, before I turn the presentation over to the team, I'd like to share a few housekeeping instructions. As you can tell, we are using the Zoom for Government platform today. The platform allows you to customize your viewing experience to maximize or minimize the presentation area, as well as the various pods in your toolbar. You can access closed caption services from your Zoom control panel. Select View Subtitles, and you can control the size and position of the on-screen live captions. Your microphone and camera have been disabled to help us control the sound quality of the presentation and to keep the focus on the presenters. But we would like to hear from you throughout our session. On the Zoom control panel, you'll see a chat pod and a Q&A pod. Please use the chat pod for any administrative questions you have or to report any tech issues you are experiencing, and one of our CES team members can assist you. Our workplace SMEs will be monitoring the Q&A pod for any specific questions that you have on session content today. Please help our experts keep track of your questions and respond to them effectively by making sure to enter them in the Q&A pod rather than the chat. And any workplace or commercial co-working questions that we aren't able to get to in today's presentation will be noted, and all questions will be answered and posted on our website, www.gsa.gov/CES. Now, I'd like to turn the session over to Joel. Joel, you have the floor.
Great. Thanks, Victor. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, perfect. Hey, everyone. And thanks, Victor, for the opportunity, and Andrea and the whole CES crew. And Carol for letting me talk a little bit about Workplace 2030 ahead of the commercial co-working offering. Many folks may have seen this icon here in some comms from PBS and GSA. We have a Workscape newsletter that comes out that's workplace related. We have communications coming out from our PBS commissioner. This is a program that kind of encapsulates all of workplace and future of work, return to office, hybrid work, all of those different programs, including commercial co-working under one umbrella that is Workplace 2030. So Workplace 2030, for background, was started in 2020, in the fall of 2020. It was a study that included 18 different federal agencies along with GSA and industry experts, where everyone kind of shared the same common pandemic experience and shared challenges and how they planned within their own internal agency to emerge from the pandemic, especially as it related to real estate. but included change management and kind of organizational culture elements as well. So within the Workplace 2030 program, there are various tools and offerings that GSA has already developed that many folks may be familiar with, as well as some emerging tools and offerings that are under development. So just to walk through these briefly, the WIFM tool, Workplace Investment and Feasibility Modeling. So this tool is an Excel-based workbook that can help folks model different scenarios of telework, and will ultimately let you know how much square footage you need based on the different scenarios that you plug into the Excel workbook. There was a CES session on that, so it's available in the library, and I believe we'll end up doing one in the upcoming months. Also, workplace engagements, there was a CES session on this that you can access that's posted online. This is, these are studies of activities that holistically evaluate human space and technology workplace needs. This is done by GSA in-house personnel as well as contracted out from AEI firms that are under an IDIQ contract at GSA. The third one listed here on the slide is commercial co-working, which Carol will go into in depth. We also have a workplace innovation lab. This is something, this is at 1800 F Street, which is GSA's headquarters in Washington, DC. And this is an innovation lab where we have different neighborhoods with different furniture layouts from different vendors where customers can come in and work and kind of kick the tires and test out different layouts, different technologies, and also experience co-working at 1800 F Street. Number 5 is fast track space. So fast track space is for agencies to choose from prepackaged space designs, concept models, and square footages that fit their needs. There's federal space listing. This is a web-based tool listing GSA's vacant, owned, and leased space for customer agencies to facilitate consolidation and expansion opportunity discussions. And then federal co-working, which is our federal solution to co-working. It's an alternative to commercial co-working that will be in federally controlled space that's under development in fiscal year 23. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So with that, I'll hand it over to Carol.
Thank you, Joel. So before we really get into talking about commercial co-working, I wanted to give just a brief understanding that commercial co-working is offered to customers through a contract vehicle named Flexible Co-working Services IDIQ. PBS previously used the contract name as the name offering, but as of October 2022, externally, we are calling this offering commercial co-working. Internally, PBS contracting officers and contracting officers representatives still refer to its formal name. So I just wanted to make that clear because I know we still have some communications that goes out that talks about flexible co-working services. It's the same. It's just because it's external, it makes more sense to name it commercial. With that, I will go into kind of talking about first describing what is co-working. So you can Google the term and get slightly different descriptions. However, in short, co-working is a style of work where people from different agencies and organizations who don't typically work together are working together in the same open workplace environment. So you're working along each other, but not necessarily with each other. Co-working emerged in the private sector in the early 2000s. It emerged as an opportunity for entrepreneurs and maybe startup companies that wanted a professional office environment to report to be around other people, to be in a vibrant space, and also have the opportunity for these startups and entrepreneurs to have a place to meet others. So again, before we go on talking about the service contract IDIQ, co-working is a space for people who don't typically work together are working together in the same workplace environment. Over the past 2 decades, the need for co-working environments have really started to emerge as real estate costs increase and the private sector needs have changed. This emergence has now become an opportunity for the federal government. Through GSA's commercial co-working services, IDIQ, we are now able to offer a short-term service contract of co-working spaces for our federal agencies. A little bit of history about co-working. Next slide. In 2019, PBS identified the need to provide temporary, flexible co-working solutions for our customer that aligned with space as a service co-working solution. Then the federal government's COVID-19 response emphasized the need for resiliency and flexibility. So that takes us to where we are now, with a commercial space as a service contract available for federal employees. This contract is intended to provide temporary space for federal agencies needing short-term co-working space and is a cost-effective solution. I'm happy to share that this contract, next slide, this contract, we were able to contract with 5 commercial vendors. 4 of the 5 are small business. Liquid Space, Desk Pass are aggregators. What this means is they are vendors that work with other co-working vendors to offer space. Novell Expansive, The Yard, and WeWork Commons are owner operated, meaning they offer co-working within their facilities only. Desk Pass, Liquid Space, Expansion, and The Yard are small business. I want you to know that commercial co-working spaces will vary from vendor to vendor and from location to location. All spaces under this contract will fully be furnished with focus on open office and open seating areas. All locations will have secure Wi-Fi, so agencies can use their VPN. As you see on the slide, here is the list of what vendors typically include. Thank you, Joel. So some of the benefits for using this commercial co-working contract is that it is immediately available. You're not locked down to the full 12 months contract. So if you need 6 months, because that is your contract need, in particular, your situation, your service contract will be 6 months versus the typical 12 months. This co-working IDIQ contract can be awarded within 10 weeks after acceptance of a reimbursable work authorization called an RWA. You decide what you need, what your needs are, whether it's a drop-in, unreserved workstation or office, meaning no reservation required. You come into the office, you find a seat, or one is assigned upon your arrival. The other option is a reservable workstation or office, which means you reserve your office or workstation through a reservation system in advance of coming into that office. Please note that vendors cannot guarantee that we'll assign the same workstation or office day after day, and this also applies for if you have a reservable or unreservable workstation or office. What's nice is this IDIQ is available in large and small markets across the continental US. And because we know that 2 of our vendors are aggregator, that allows us to really penetrate those smaller markets to help our customers. Pricing is determined by city tier, the duration of the contract, and the number of workstations or office that you are needing as part of your solution. Thank you. So this is available to all federal agencies in the executive, judicial, and legislative branch in the continental US. So when would you consider using this contract? Perhaps you're facing a hiring surge and your current space cannot support new team members. You could be facing an emergency situation when your current space is not accessible. Now with our weather being in the winter, we've had some spaces that we had to vacate. So this allows us to provide these temporary spaces for our customers. Perhaps during construction projects, if you're in need of swing space for your teams to still meet while construction is taking place, or when your project is facing construction delays and you're needing to vacate the current location. Another examples of how you could utilize this contract is when you have distributed work teams. We tend to have a lot of them now as more and more federal agencies are using more telework. There's times where you need to have these distributed teams come and work together. This also allows you to have them work on a project instead of working virtually. Or a pilot co-working program, which could allow you to understand really how your employees need to work in this new hybrid environment before developing your new space requirements. An example of one of our customers that utilize this contract is a customer located in Portland, Oregon, was in need of swing space for a new lease construction project. Their current location could no longer support the requirement and had some security concerns in their location. The team worked to understand the need, and the customer was able to get them into a current location during the consolidation project. The customer strongly agreed that this commercial co-working IDIQ was the right solution and not only recommended it, but would use it again if faced with the same situation. So at this time, I'm going to take a pause and we're going to go to our first poll.
Yes, let's give our presenters a chance to catch their breath with some poll questions. Each question is going to pop up on your view, or you may see a polls option pop up, a polls panel pop up in your bottom toolbar. If for any reason you cannot select an option in the poll, you may type your answer in the chat. Poll question number 1. Which examples of co-working use cases do you think might benefit your organization? You can choose all that apply. All right, now we can see those results. Looks like actually, there's a very nice spread of what everyone thinks would be most useful. Our front runner is swing space. And then we have a close follow-up by construction delays and emergency space. The rest are still very much seemingly very useful to almost half of our audience today. Very nice, very good results. Next slide. There we go. Joel or Carol, if you'd like to speak on the parameters as well.
Certainly. So let's talk about the parameters of this commercial co-working contract. It is important for me to let you know that this does not replace a traditional lease. The commercial co-working contract has a minimum of 12 months. So if there is a need to recompete, let's say, for example, we just saw in the pool construction delays, we understand that we're facing a lot of them, or the emergency situations. Therefore, if there is a need to extend the 12-month contract, it would need to be recompeted with no guarantee that you would get the same vendor. However, it would meet the same requirements and be in the same location within that defined delineated area that you indicated in the initial statement of work. This contract does not allow for any configuration or alterations. What I mean by this is you can't come in to these locations and rearrange the furniture, or if you have a 6-month contract because of construction delays, bring in your agency's lateral file for permanent placement. This contract, unfortunately, is not suitable for agencies that have public-facing entities or have frequent visitor needs, nor is it exclusive use of space or a specific area. So again, I indicated you can indicate reserve, unreserved, workstation, or office it would be in that location, what's available there, but there'd be no defined area for your team to sit unless it was reserved, and you would make other arrangement at that time once the contract is awarded. There is also no guarantee of reoccurring availability in those specific workstations, as I mentioned just now. And you're not allowed to leave your personal items. So you will need to take your personal items at the end of the day, even if your contract is 2 days a week. Let's say, for example, you would come in on a Tuesday and Wednesday, you would still need to take your personal belongings with you and then come back into that workplace with your belongings the next day. PBS is still required to ensure that no suitable government-owned space is currently available to meet your space need. So to use this IDIQ, it would not supersede existing vacant and suitable government-owned space. PBS also cannot issue a task order without receiving full reimbursable authorization, RWA funding. And lastly, it does not include parking. However, parking is typically available within a 4-block radius of each vendor's location. I should say most locations. With that, we're going to take our next quiz, or actually our first quiz.
Yes, who doesn't love a good knowledge check question? Quiz question number 1, commercial co-working parameters. Without recompetition, what is the maximum term of the commercial co-working service contract? Is it A, 6 months, B, 12 months, C, 2 years, or D, 5 years? We can show that answer when it looks like everyone's had a chance to get their answers in. B, 12 months wins by a landslide.
Love it.
All right, can we go to our next quiz question? Quiz question number 2. Which of the following are not included in the commercial co-working space? Select all that apply. Is it A, reconfiguration or modification of the space? B, leaving personal items in the space? C, access to the space in both large and small markets across the US? D, guaranteed recurring availability of specific space? E, ability to reserve private offices or workstations? Or F, parking? And as that question pops up, you can get your answers in.
Hey, Victor, we're having a problem with that poll pop-up, so we're going to ask folks to please respond in the chat if you would.
All good. Thank you very much. Yeah, no worries. Just put your answers in the chat if that is not popping up for you. I'm seeing a lot of parking. Everyone is saying parking, but we've got some other people selecting even more answers. Remember, this is a select all that apply question. All right. It looks like there's still a lot of answers coming in, but I think we've seen enough to see what people are thinking. I'll throw that back to you, Carol.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm happy to share that PBS recently co-hosted with 3 of our commercial co-working vendor called Bed Free Week. It was a promotional week to give federal employees an opportunity to kick the tires and experience working in a co-working environment. This took place in 3 locations: DC, Denver, and San Francisco. a total of 253 pre-registrants. We had 30 agencies participate. And from this short 5-day promotional week, we received survey results that indicated that 92% were very or somewhat happy with the co-working environment, and 82% indicated that they were very or somewhat likely to recommend co-working. Now that I've shared what co-working is and what a good business case is and its parameters, let's go through its process. So every PBS region has assigned a contracting officer representative called a COR, who will work with their regional or national planning manager to understand its customer needs to find the right solution. Prior to beginning our conversations with our customer, verification that there is no government-owned space available to meet the requirement is performed. Then the contracting officer representatives continues to work with the planning manager and the customer primarily to really understand the needs and develop a statement of work that is the right solution for the customer. The statement of work will identify the delineated area, the number of workspaces. Again, we would be discussing whether or not there's a need to have non-reserved or reservable workstations or office, the city that it needs to be located or cities. And if there's multiple cities, because you have a need at more than just one location, we would still use the same statement of work, but indicate those multiple locations and the requirement of each location. Without getting too much in the weed, I want to share that the use cost varies from non-reservable and reservable. So we have that discussion with your regional or national account manager. And again, once we have an initial meeting, we will have our regional contracting officer representative on the call available to assist with those conversations. So GSA has established, part of this contract, GSA has established an approved pricing schedule for each vendor. This varies from vendor to vendor. The COR will prepare an independent government estimate called an IGE, and that is based on the number of workspace required, again, whether it's a workstation, an office, reserved or unreserved, city, the term of the co-working needs up to 12 months, and the frequency. And what I mean by that is sometimes teams want to come in maybe twice a week, once a week, or maybe you have various teams that come in various times during the month or the week. That will be determined as part of the understanding that as part of the statement of work and then calculated into that IGE. All task orders that we have as part of this contract will be competed. So all this particular statement of work and IGE, once we're able to go out to the vendors, it would go out to all 5 vendors. All task orders will be based on lowest price, reasonably acceptable. So we'll go to the next slide and talk about some takeaways. I know I have shared a lot of information, but if you walk away with anything, I definitely want for you to understand that commercial co-working service is not a lease. Therefore, it does not replace a lease. Commercial co-working is an open and shared environment. You are working in the same workplace environment along other agencies and organizations, but not necessarily working with them. And lastly, commercial co-working is widely available in large and small markets in the continental US. And with that, we have our last poll question. And hopefully this one works.
Yes. All right. Last poll question. How likely is your organization to utilize commercial co-working as a workplace option? A, very likely, B, somewhat likely, or C, not likely? Yes, go ahead and use the chat function to respond. It looks like this one's not popping up, but hey, we're going to roll with it. All right. I'm seeing a lot of somewhat likelies with a few very likelies and much less not likelies in there. So very good. It looks like people are thinking this is a very useful option for co-working. And beyond that poll question, you'll see a question below. In what cities would your agency want to co-work? Go ahead and type these answers in the chat box as well. Sacramento and Arlington, DC, Denver, Atlanta, Philadelphia, a lot of DCs. This seems to be very popular with the Washington, DC staff. Yeah, quite a few options in there. Very nice, very nice.
This is great.
Yeah.
So you'll get a copy of the slide. As Victor had mentioned, this will be part of the client enrichment series. But here I just wanted again to share that if you're interested in learning more about commercial co-working, please contact your national and regional client leads to explore co-working. They are aware of this offering and are definitely a great resource for initial conversation. We've also provided, or will be providing after this presentation, a Q&A document as a takeaway that really helps cover the basics about commercial co-working. If you have advanced technical or contracting question, please use the workplace email address for those questions. And I'm excited to say that coming soon, we will have a new GSA workplace website that will have all our Workplace 2030 program initiatives. Now, before we open up this presentation for Q&A, Joel will be sharing a brief overview of one of our new Workplace 2030 initiatives. Joel, take it away.
Great, thanks, Carol. So I saw the Q&A pod. I see, questions. There's always questions about security in commercial space. So this is the federal co-working solution that GSA is developing. Will be co-working as a space as a service, co-working as a model, but within federally controlled space. So you'll get that same level of security and familiarity as you would in any federal building with a traditional OA. So the benefits are all the same as if all the ones that Carol outlined for commercial co-working, with some added benefit of being in a federal building. So, be it shared exclusively with other federal agencies. We're working through, let me show you. I'll just talk a little bit more about kind of like where we're at in the process. So there are agencies or regions within GSA that are going to be prototyping federal co-working in specific locations this fiscal year. So if you're in one of those locations, we have about, I think 8 of our 11 regions currently are going to be participating in those prototyping locations. So if you're in those, then you'll be receiving information from GSA staff. Your traditional point of contact for your agency at GSA will be reaching out to you to see if you want to participate in co-working at one of those locations. So, the use cases are all the same. I think really the distinction there is that it's in federally controlled space versus commercial. And some of the other, limitations that Carol identified, such as the 12-month limitation, won't necessarily be an issue in the federal solution. So one of the benefits of commercial co-working is that we can have folks go out and test co-working and even have conversations to see if it's a possible solution for them. And then sometimes when we get into the nitty-gritty of it, we realize that it's not a solution for various reasons. So those are the types of issues that we're trying to address in the federal solution. So some of those challenges we're trying to overcome when GSA develops its own solution. So I was glad to see a lot of folks interested in co-working in Washington, DC area. We do have the Workplace Innovation Lab that I alluded to at the beginning of the presentation. This is at GSA's headquarters. This is an area where folks can come in and co-work at no cost. The first year that it's open, you can just come in you'll be able to reserve a space and come work for the day at 1800 F Street. So this is going to be officially opened on January 25th. There'll be a ribbon cutting. And then soon after that, we'll be doing mass communication to folks in the National Capital Region to give them more detail about what it is, how it works, how to reserve it, and hope to have folks come in and work in the space. So I think that was it for Federal Coworking and Innovation Lab. We can open it up for the Q&A.
All right, well, let's see what we have here in the Q&A pod. First question, marked for answering live. Federal agencies are integrated with non-federal users. I think, Joel, you just answered that with the difference between commercial and federal co-working. You'd like to speak more on it?
Right, yeah, so I think we covered it, but the commercial co-working, you'll be, with other tenants, other folks working in there during the day that are, regular parts of regular people.
Yeah.
non-federal agency.
Gotcha. And where are the other locations of the prototypes aside from the GSA headquarters you mentioned?
They're still being kind of like identified. We have 8 participating regions. So I don't have the specific locations to share today, but that information will be coming out. We're doing all of our internal communications and training, and then that will cascade out to our external partners. So folks that are located in those areas would expect to hear from GSA in the coming months.
Very nice. Are there safety guidelines for the federal co-working spaces, or are those also provided via a vendor?
So can you clarify the question? This is Carol. So for safety, in regards to commercial co-working, all commercial co-working locations are secure in the sense that you either once, depending on what location you end up getting assigned via the IDIQ contract, you will have like a key card that comes in to go into the space. So in that aspect, it's secure. If for federal co-working, we're still, my understanding, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, our buildings are already secure. So it would be us identifying those particular locations and ensuring that they're still secure when you go into the space. Both commercial and federal co-working, again, is you'll be working with other, this time if it's in a federal space, other federal employees, but sharing the open office and open seating and not necessarily working together.
What is the start occupancy time frame for federal co-working spaces?
So I meant to kind of just tease this, but this is great excitement, so this is good. The question, the start occupancy. So really right now we're just prototyping. There's a lot of the details to be worked out. So, billing and security and a booking system, all of those types of things. So in these different regional prototypes, we'll be testing out all of those, the different possible, alternatives that we have. And then part of the prototyping will be gathering feedback from customers, what's working, what isn't working, what is the demand in certain areas, to try to gauge the long-term demand. And then, GSA will invest in those, in the most viable solutions that seem to be working during the prototyping. So I would say this fiscal year for those, those regions that are part of the prototype. And then beyond that, it's kind of unclear right now.
Very nice. We have 2 questions related to the DC Innovations Lab. One is, what is the address, if that's something you can share? And 2 is, how can we be on the list for the new space opening in DC?
Yeah, so the address is 1800 F Street Northwest, Washington, DC. In terms of, I'm looking back at the slides, and then we had a contact. We have workplace. So Here we go. So workplace@gsa.gov is a good email address for anything workplace related, including inquiries about the Workplace Innovation Lab. So you can email that. Also, we have linked in here GSA's list of national account managers. So your client leads, so you can contact them and they'll be able to help, help folks with navigating that process.
Very nice. Is there a demand? Is there a large demand for extra spaces? This question might require clarification. I'll move on to a different question. That one seemed a little open-ended. Let's see. Are there any opportunities to recommend prototypes to include?
I would say yes, if you contact your regional or national client manager and have those conversations, they will be working, they can work with you and having those conversations at least of interest. And then moving forward, as we, again, prototyping the federal co-working, see what other regions are available. Because this is in federal space, it would be dependent on location.
All right, well, it looks like that is all the questions we have at this time. First of all, I'd like to thank all of our subject matter experts and our presenters for a great presentation. This was extremely informative. I also want to thank all of you, our clients, who are able to join us today. Again, we will post this slide deck, the session recording, and formal written responses to the questions and comments posted in our Q&A pod as a frequently asked questions document for future reference on our website, www.gsa.gov/CES. And we have some great classes coming up later this winter. Please join us on Thursday, January 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern for our encore performance of Say Aloha to Kahua, where we'll explore GSA's new online virtual project management collaboration site for federal customers, GSA project managers, and contractors. Make it your New Year's resolution to request access and start using Kahua today. And our next offering from our central office PBS workplace strategy will cover the Federal Co-working and Workplace Innovation Lab. This will serve as a proving ground for the latest workplace technologies, equipment, and furniture set in a federal co-working space at GSA headquarters, as mentioned in today's presentation. You can learn more and register for both classes by visiting the link in your slide deck or by visiting our website, www.gsa.gov/CES. The goal of the Client Enrichment Series, as always, is to engage our audience in workplace topics that contribute to your mission success and to your effective management of your real estate and workplace programs. Thank you again for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.